HH Holdings. And I'll be your host for today's section. I want to start by saying thank you to everyone that has joined us today. It just means that you basically take your growth seriously, and that's something that we appreciate a lot. And just like maybe we mentioned previously, Tech Talk Live is a monthly virtual series that's brought to you by HH Holdings Group in collaboration with TECHECONOMY. And basically, we discuss we have real life conversations to help you thrive in today's world. Yeah. So for today, we have I don't know, something I would consider a very interesting topic because a lot of people work remotely now, and the topic for today is basically talking about how you can master remote work and be more productive and also balance work and work-life balance and all of that. So if you're someone that's been working remotely for years, if you're trying to manage a remote team, if you're trying to just figure it out, you are at the right place, and this conversation is certainly for you. So before we go ahead, I'd want to introduce our speaker for today, our guest, someone that has a broad knowledge of product thinking, leadership experience, because he has led a lot of teams and he has a genuine heart for solving real problems. So on today's, our speaker for today is Roosevelt Elias, and he's the founder and CEO of Payable. That is a product tech company that makes financial access and intelligent business tools available to micro and small enterprises across Africa. With a background in creative technology, he has founded a couple of businesses, and now he leads Payable. And I mean, one thing that we know is that his journey reflects innovation, a deep commitment to building and serving underdeserved communities, and we are actually honored to have him here today. So welcome to Tech Talk Live. And I would say that it's really an honor to have it here today, considering the fact that we get the opportunity to tap into your experience and how you've been able to manage leading multiple teams and more like blend productivity and remote work. So welcome once again.
Thank you, Clara, for having me. Thank you so much. And hopefully I'm able to contribute to the best of my ability as we go today.
Okay, so just in case I didn't cover everything there is to know about you, you mind giving us a brief introduction about yourself?
You actually did a good job in speaking and covering the stuff around me. But yeah, my name is Roosevelt. I'm the founder at Payable. So I started off in the creative economy by doing graphic design, literally in university, and then I've gone from there to building stuff, writing code, building products, building teams, and now I'm here. But in all of this, I've always been interested in helping and working for tools in tech for people who tech aren't built for. For example, this is 2025. Everyone talks about AI, but if you look at the stats, it's only the rich and influential that actually uses AI, and the vast majority of the world actually do not use AI. It's because you're online that makes you see AI every day. But there are like 8 billion people, and maybe less than 10% of them actually use AI. Go figure.
That's an interesting one to know. Okay, so one thing that we can tell is that you are someone that has led, judging from like your experiences, you've led a couple of remote teams. And the first question that I myself and everybody here wants to know today is, what would you say is the biggest mindset shifts that entrepreneurs need to have when it comes to leading remote teams?
Before you get to the point of even leading remote teams, you first start with self. So you need to first of all figure out who you are, and then you have to now find the best humans that will be an extension of that person. I don't know if that makes sense. So this is because you're hiring those people not just for the business but for yourself as well, and then you now have to constantly remind yourself that these are humans too, right? And they have a God in them. So you should actually revere them and respect them. So a lot of people go off into entrepreneurship thinking the people that they hire becomes their servant. Actually, no, you're there to serve them. So that's one thing I would say, okay, you need to actually understand that before you actually go into employing others. You have to communicate with them on a human level, not just on a work level, because apart from the screen and the sound that you hear, there's a lot more to them. And if all you care about is the work that they give you, then that person really wouldn't care much about that work or you, right? So you have to inspire trust in them for themselves, you understand, so that they can do what they do best excellently. Do you understand? And because the truth is, if you could do it, if you could do it on your own, you could have done it. And I actually believe that God designed it that way for all of us to depend on each other. So I feel like that is the way to go when you want to go into managing teams, especially when it's remote. You just have to have a lot of respect for the people who are coming to work with you. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think that's a very great mindset, because there are still, I think, founders and entrepreneurs who think that, okay, just do your work and go. But when you see your team members as people that are there to help you grow, it changes everything. And I think that's a solid one. So as someone that has,
Mm.
led remote teams across various industries, what would you say is, one
Mm.
habit? Because I mean, I know that working remotely is not easy to keep the motivation of your team going. So from your own end, what would you say is one habit that has helped you stay productive, even when, the motivation is quite low?
There are there are so many compartments to it. The first step is the fact that you're an entrepreneur. Well, I'm an entrepreneur. So one of the things is, if anybody comes to meet me and tell me, oh, I want to go into business, the first question I ask you is, do you know how to pray? Because you're gonna need a lot of it. Do you understand? So now when it comes to let me know if you can still hear me.
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, I can
Okay,
hear
okay,
you.
okay. So when it comes to leading people, even when your motivation is low, one of the things I do daily, I try my best, is to pray and then show up no matter what, and just no matter how little in any way, I show up. There are days where there is no motivation to do anything. Do you understand? But sometimes you have to let the goal be bigger than who you are and what you want and what your body is craving. It's kind of like, for anybody who goes to the gym, they'll tell you no pain, no gain, no gain, and you have to actually live on that path, whether you like it or not. Do you understand? And so it's a lot of disciplines, a lot of mental work. Just let yourself realize that every day isn't the same and growth isn't linear. So just because you're not motivated today doesn't mean you won't be tomorrow. Do you understand? So another thing is, I write things down. So I write things down usually at the start of the week. Do you understand? And of course, stuff is going to come up sometime in the week, and some things will go up the list, and then some things will go back down. But it's a thing where you now have to let yourself know that I have to get these things done, regardless whether the rain is falling or the sun is shining, or whether it's raining cats and dogs outside. I have to get this done. You might not have the motivation, but the result that comes from the progress should be enough to actually help you power through. And there are weeks where 7 days I am active. Then the next week, kind of like how this week is going, I think I was very active on Monday and Tuesday. But yesterday, so Tuesday night, I didn't get enough sleep. And I think that affected my yesterday. And last night I chose to sleep early. And today I'm trying to like power through. I wouldn't say I'm not motivated, but I'm not as hyped as most people would want to be as hyped, and or as much as I'll be hyped. So yeah, you just have to let your goals and aspirations and what you need to achieve become bigger than you and what you're feeling, because you don't want to fail to emotion. That's what I would say.
Yes. I mean, as someone that works remotely, I can totally relate to most of the things that you said, especially the
Yeah,
parts that has to do with writing down, the
yeah.
things that you have to do at the beginning of it. It works like magic. And I hope that those our audience and those listening today is, I mean, one thing that they can take away from this conversation is the importance of writing down things that you have to
Yeah.
do, a to-do list or something. You don't exactly have to stick to it, but I mean, it helps you, it just guides you to make things better. So
Yes. So just to add that part where you say you don't have to stick to it is because a lot of us, when we miss it, we just start, we just feel it through. But I don't think that's the case. You don't have to stick to it, but it kind of gives you a guide. Like for example, there are certain weeks where the stuff that I put down last week is on the list again today because I couldn't get to it last week. And it's not
yeah,
because I was lazy last week or I couldn't do things, but there are things that never got written on this list that got done simply because they
yeah.
came up in the moment and they have to get done in that moment. So yeah.
Yes, yes, I totally agree with you. But I think one thing that most people that work remotely also struggle with is balancing work and their personal life. So at what
Mm,
point do you even find time to rest? Because working remotely is very easy to just combine everything and just work from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. and you just keep
mm.
going because I mean you're just in your house, your space, your office is in your home and all of that. So how do you try to draw the line between work and rest?
For me personally, so this is not a general, for me personally, I'm going to speak for myself first because
Yeah.
my case, and I think this should be the case for anyone else, right? It just depends on where you are in life, right? It depends on where you are in life, in your career, and your work. Do you understand? For me, I'm the founder, so I kind of do not rest or take a break from my work. Even when I'm not doing anything, I'm thinking, and that's still working. Do you understand? There are some companies you work for in like America where even us, even we've adopted that where they say we're hiring for your 24 hours, not for your 8 hours. And that's what it means to become an entrepreneur. That you are sleeping and you're dreaming about a solution that you could not solve yesterday. The same thing. I'm very sure like programmers also when I used to write code, programmers also experience this, right? Where they are sleeping, all of a sudden they now realize where the bug is coming from. And they wake up 4 a.m. and they start working. Because if it gets past that time, you might forget what the problem is again. So there's always so for me, I would for me personally, I don't say, okay, this is the time I'm not doing work, or this is the time I'm not playing. It's a thing where when the opportunity arrives, and in a responsible manner, I just step into that zone, knowing that, okay, I've had enough work for now. My brain is fogged. There are days where you just work and just realize that, okay, you're having brain fog and you're just staring at your screen, or you're staring at the paper, or you're staring at the document or the code. Um, there are those days, and it is not, if you're going through that, you're not alone. You're not lazy. It just comes with the brain. Do you understand? The fatigue also happens to even machines. There are times when I don't know if you've used ChatGPT long enough, when ChatGPT just starts giving you some answers that don't make sense.
Exactly. And
You
like, oh,
understand?
it's certain that you're tired. Let's restart.
So you just have to close
Yeah.
it down and just, okay, take a walk.
Yeah.
They'll say touch grass. Do you understand? So sometimes you just don't wait until you now start getting burnt out. Do you understand? You might have achieved so much, but you want to become an overachiever. It's not a bad thing. But at some point, your brain tells you no. Yeah.
Awesome. That's a nice one. So I think that judging by what you've said, one thing that I and some other people must have taken from maybe most leaders, I think that there's usually an issue of communication when it comes to leading remote teams. Like
Mm.
you're not in the office, you're not seeing them and all of that. How are you able to build communication? How are you able to maintain trust? How are you able to keep the team aligned? I mean, especially considering the fact that you don't get to see them. Everybody's working from their own zone and all of that. How is that for you? And what advice will you give to founders and entrepreneurs generally?
Okay. So the first thing I'll have to say is communication is a two-way street. There is a source and then there is a recipient, right? And sometimes the communication problems would usually come from the source. But before you even get to the point of communication, I think founders and entrepreneurs should try their best to hire the most excellent extensions of themselves, like I've mentioned earlier. Do you understand? People who are better than you. The reason for that is that so that you don't have to explain yourself too much, one, so that you are able to, like earlier, when you the one of the first questions you asked, I spoke about trust. Do you understand? So you can be able to trust them and then they're able to understand you correctly. Do you understand? And in my experience, I would always advise you as the leader to take responsibility for all angles when it comes to communicating, where you take the time and you invest it to make sure that understanding is passed to the rightful place, and it is passed in such a grateful and excellent manner. Do you understand? So that people, because these people, because there are people, right, who do not know how to communicate. Then while there are those who will tell you to go to hell and you will look forward to the trip. So I think it's first of all a self thing before you start looking at the people who you are communicating with. Are you communicating clear enough? Have you gotten the right people who can understand you well enough? If not, are you able to actually be patient enough and gracefully pass down the understanding you want that person to get? I think that's what I'll talk about in communication, because there's so much that can be lost in context because you're just hearing sounds and you're seeing a face, or sometimes no face. Meanwhile, there's so much more that a gesture could fix, and understanding of the situation. Some people just want to tell you a task, say, "Oh, Clara, get open Zoom. Why am I opening Zoom? For what is the purpose of that Zoom?" So sometimes my ability to now say, "Okay, this is what we need to do," and when you might not find out that because I want to use Zoom, but maybe the best solution is not Zoom. It might be Google Meets. Do you understand? It might be Microsoft Teams. Do you understand? At the end of the day, it's your ability to be able to communicate the understanding around what you're trying to communicate. That's what I would say.
That's a very solid one. And to be honest, you've given a lot of examples from a founder perspective. But now we also want to know, as remote workers, especially me, and I'm sure like many other people that joined us, that we get to work remotely. How, what are the things that you think we can do to make our job, while working remotely, even more effective? I know you mentioned communication, but are there like other things that you think that we can do to, become more effective?
So this the effectiveness in your place of work is not a straightforward answer, simply because the place of work matters, why you are there matters, and what you are there for matters, right? So it's a thing where, for me, what I usually want members of my team to have is a sense of ownership, in the sense that, why are you even here? What are you building? And now, what level of understanding do you have about this? Now, what level of synergy do you have with your team lead, or your departmental head, or the person that is giving you the project to do, right? And now your other team members. Do you feel, are you trying to play office politics, or are you just trying to just eat? Because if your whole purpose of coming to work is just so that your salary can be paid at the end of the month, there is so much that you will miss out on, including miscommunication at work. You understand? So I feel like the same way where founders have to have a mindset shift, the team members who are joining teams should also have a shift to actually know why they are joining that team, right? What is the purpose? What's the vision? Do you align with this, or are you just looking for tea and bread? Do you understand? So these are some of the things I would want team members to actually consider. I would not advise anybody to join a team where they don't feel like they are aligned with their goal and their purpose. I understand that money is important, but sometimes the results of your work is more important. There are people who make a lot of money at their place of work, but they are constantly burnt out. Why are they burnt out? Because they are just doing things that they genuinely are not interested in. In fact, you probably don't want to be in tech. You probably don't want to be in the creative economy. You probably want to write, but you're here at Facebook, you're here at Payable, you're here at Flutterwave, doing what you don't want because the salary is good.
Solid one. That's a solid one. I
Mm.
think and it also boils down to, because there have been situations where maybe team members are feeling isolated and disconnected. So based on
Mm.
what you said, it's really not about, maybe with regards to the fact they are working remotely, it's more
Mm.
about the mindset.
It's exactly, it is you just eat it on the spot. Sometimes your mindset is where you are. It is who you are. Do you understand? Like, I personally have had some jobs where I've worked in some places where I only stayed for like 6 weeks because I had all I could do was done in that 6 weeks. Now I'm bored.
I can
Do you
relate
understand?
to that. Yes.
Yeah. So, but imagine me trying to force myself to stay there. I would constantly be burnt out. I would wake up just looking forward to the end of the day.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. I think another thing that founders, now we're talking about founders again, is the fact that they also have to find a way to, more like motivate their team. Now, regardless of how maybe aligned a person is, I think that it comes a time when maybe they are feeling demotivated and all of that. Now, if you're working on site, I think it's easier to, motivate them because you're seeing them and all of that. But if you're working remotely and you can't, see them as much as possible, what would you advise founders to do in that situation to help their team members become more productive and also keep them motivated?
Sorry, come again. My internet shook a little bit, so I didn't hear much of what you said just now.
Okay, yeah. So I'm saying from a founder's perspective now, regardless of how aligned a person is or team members are, there are sometimes situations where they still feel demotivated, right? Now, if you're working on site, I think it's easier for you to, motivate your team members. But in a situation where they're working remotely, how can founders help their team members, become more productive? Not from their own end now, from as a founder to team members, how can they help their team members become more productive and also, motivate them, considering the fact that they don't see them as much as possible?
The thing about motivation is the whole point of motivation is that you're looking forward to something. If there's nothing to look forward to, you're actually not motivated to do anything. It's usually the source of burnouts, actually, because burnouts are as a result of lack of progress or lack of results. So team members could literally lose motivation if they can't see progress, if they can't see the needle moving, or if they no longer see themselves being there. So once again, communicating on a human level, where not a lot of people would usually check up on their staff or on what they are doing, or their team member on what they are doing, but they don't check in on them as a person. Do you understand? Because every call is a work call. I don't think every work in the workplace should be a work call. I feel like you should legitimately book some time of day in the week, maybe twice even, as a founder, to actually just talk to your team members. Look, how are you doing? Let's just, do you understand what's going on? Do you understand? And it's not like it's like when you catch up with your friend that you haven't seen in a while, like, oh, what's going on? Like, sometimes you'll be like, oh, bro, it's like you bought this shirt new, that kind of thing. How have things been? Do you understand? Sometimes people loosen up when they realize that there's room for that. Obviously, there are boundaries that are to be set, but they are not hard boundaries because, once again, these people are human like you. It shouldn't be like a boss. It shouldn't be like a boss and a worker um, dynamics. It should be a servant and a servant dynamics. Like, we're both here to serve. So I can relate with you and you can relate with me. So let's gist. So sometimes that alone goes a long way for somebody because it tells them that you see them. Obviously, at some point, your company gets too big and you might not be able to do that for everybody. But you starting that from the beginning and now spiraling down, and now becomes the heads of departments being able to do that. So that's where things like team bonding exercises come in. They're like, oh, let's go for team bonding. But sometimes you can go for team bonding is good, but in between those times, it's just with the person that is in your team, like how, like on a human level, like there should be like some sort of vulnerability. And obviously, it's not always safe in every environment. It's not always safe in every environment, but you have to actually create the kind of environment that is possible in. So I'm going to advise founders to actually create a relaxed environment where people in your team are able to discuss with you on a personal level. Like there are times where members of my team just say, bro, can I call you by 1? Let's talk. I'll be like, check my calendar. If it's free, book it. And then we can just talk. We can spend an hour talking and we don't talk about work. Because sometimes the person is more important than the work that they produce. Because if the person is not okay, the work will not be okay. Yeah.
That's very true. I think this is one very important takeaway that I hope that those listening to us can take from today's discussion. Again, the fact that you also have to build a kind of personal relationship with your team members. So it's not just get this done, get this done, get this done all the time. You also have to check in to ensure that the person that is doing the job is actually okay, because that would also affect how productive they are. So yeah. I think that's a very solid one.
Just to add to that, there's a book by Miles Monroe. I'm still reading it currently. I'm not done with it, but there's something like he pointed out something very, very strong. He said a lot of people think leadership is inspiring with fear. So some people want their team members to have some level of fear and respect and space for them. Sometimes, yes, it might have proven to work, but that's not leadership. Leadership is you being able to inspire outside of having to force anyone to do anything. Do you understand? And because forcing people get burnt out, but people will do it either way. At some point, they just go and it stops working. And then you start changing people. And hiring is one of the hardest thing in any business. That's in my opinion. Hiring is one of the most important, but also the hardest thing to do, simply because it is hard to find good talent. It's not that there's no good talent, but do they fit into what you're building? So the ones that you have, keep them very well. Same rule of thumb, the customers that you have are the ones that will pay you, not the ones that you don't have yet.
Yes. Wow. These are life lessons. Like I'm sure people are taking notes and like, nice. But yeah, we're actually coming to the end of everything. But I think one final question that I have is that okay, founder aside now, let's even hear from what you think as with regards to like a remote worker. There are times where you feel overwhelmed, really overwhelmed. And I think that as someone that has worked on site for a couple of years and also worked remotely, I think that I usually say it's easier to, relax when you work on site, because you get tired and maybe there's somebody to just stop to and just ease yourself for a bit before you continue working and all of that. But when you're working remotely, it's just you and your space and all that. So I think it's a bit more difficult, in my own opinion, to deal with feeling overwhelmed as a remote worker. So what would you say is like a change that remote workers can make to, help them deal with feeling overwhelmed, and, that will change everything, that you consider a game changer?
Instead of looking for band-aid solutions, like you just mentioned, right? There are people who are on site, get overwhelmed, and they look for somebody to talk to, just to gist with as a distraction, and then go back, and then they're overwhelmed again. The question is, what's overwhelming you in the first place? How self-aware are you about what's making you overwhelmed? Because if it's the work that you are doing that's overwhelming you, what about the work that is overwhelming you? Maybe you should discuss with your team lead. Maybe you should take breaks. I am a big believer of taking breaks. You could work for maybe an hour or two, take a 15 minutes walk, and then just come back and just do what you need to do, if that is what will help you, right? Staring at the screen is painful. A lot of us now, by the time you're hitting 40, all of a sudden you're wearing glasses. Not because you're supposed to have bad sight, it's because you looked at screens all your life, right? So now it could just be the fact that you're looking at the screen too much. Sometimes your eyes might actually be just bad, and now your brain starts hurting because the screen is too bright, or it's too dim, or your room is too dark, or you are isolating yourself. You actually don't have like some form of communication. You are not talking, you are not trying to enjoy yourself. I remember when I was in university, and it was so counterintuitive for me to actually study. I rather study at night and with music blasting in my ear while I'm reading my book. Well, a lot of people be like, oh, they can't study when there's that kind of noise. In fact, I go to noisy classes and study in there because that distraction and me being able to just look at my book for 10 minutes and look again, because I'm someone who my attention span is fairly low. So I try to manage like my surroundings to be able to make sure that I'm able to work for long and actually have some form of distraction while working. Because if I decide to stay there, I'll work for 2 hours and my brain locks. Meanwhile, if I could do 1 hour and take 5 minutes break, I could stay there for 10 hours. So sometimes you have to know yourself first. You have to know why you are feeling the way you're feeling. Be self-aware enough to do it. Sometimes majority of the people who work remotely fall into the trap of just working and sleeping. That is actually not a good thing. Sometimes take it upon yourself to actually walk outside and take walks, and let it not be that when you are going out, you're still going to work outside by going shopping or anything like that. No, just for yourself, just to look at nature. Sometimes all that will help you over time, where the work is not like breathing down your neck like, oh, you must do me. No, it's like you breathing down the work's neck like, oh, I'm going to finish you and like it's going to be more. Once you attack it, like a lot of people also have this thing called victim mentality. I feel like that is also a thing where you feel like you're a victim because you're working. Why is the work not a victim of you? Think about it that way. Why is the thing you're doing not a victim of you? Like, I'm the problem, so, and you'll be sick of me, that kind of thing. Once you have that approach towards life, I feel like life would be a whole lot different for so many people.
Okay. I think this last question was for me because I just work, sleep, work. So
Yeah.
I'm I'm taking something from that. So I mean, step out once in a while and just rest, and then
Not,
come back to
not
work.
once in a while, often actually.
Mm. Yeah, that's a solid one. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think to be honest, that's it from my end. But I'm just going to see if we have any questions from the audience, and yeah, let me just confirm. If you have any questions from anybody? Okay. So please, if you have any questions, the right time to share your questions, and we'll have our speaker attend to it ASAP. So I'm just going to give about 5 minutes to take questions. Okay, it's like we currently do not have questions. Thank you, Muslim. Thank you so much. So thank you so much for taking out the time to speak to us about this. I have learned a lot personally, and I'm sure that the audience have so much to take home based on everything that you've said. You've given us real strategies, you've given us practical examples, you've shared personal stories, and I'm sure a lot of people have a clearer picture of what it's like to work in the remote world and in a remote space and all of that. So we appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And we hope that if we come calling again, you would, be happy to do this with us again. Thank you.
Definitely,
Thank you so much,
definitely.
everyone.
I look forward if there's a nice time, I'm there for it.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. And to everyone that joined in today, thank you so much for taking out the time as well to be here. We appreciate the fact that you did this to invest in yourself to grow and to learn how to become better from your own end. So we appreciate that. And we are looking forward to hosting you again for the next edition of Tech Talk Live. My name is Clara Triple, and it's a pleasure to host you for this edition. Thank you so much, everyone, and bye for now.